Have you ever wondered why, after decades of marriage, a wife can start feeling distant from her husband? Why does a relationship that once seemed so full of love and connection begin to fade over time? If you've noticed this shift, or if you're trying to understand what's happening in your relationship, this video is for you. As we age, relationships change, and not always for the better. In this video, we're diving into the reasons why women often start feeling differently about their husbands as they get older and what you can do to stop this from happening in your relationship. From emotional labor and communication struggles to the burdens of housework and a loss of intimacy, we'll uncover the subtle factors that slowly erode affection. But it's not all doom and gloom. You'll also learn how these issues can be addressed before it's too late. By the end of this video, you'll have practical steps to rekindle that lost connection and strengthen your marriage. Whether you're a husband looking to understand your wife better or a wife who's feeling disconnected, there's something here for everyone. So stay with me until the end, and let's explore how to make love last, even as the years go by. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Number 1. The emotional labor becomes too heavy. For years, so many women have found themselves quietly and tirelessly shouldering the emotional burdens of their relationships, often without receiving any recognition or gratitude for their endless efforts. These women carry the weight of remembering every single birthday, anniversary, and special occasion that's important to their family and friends. They carefully plan each family gathering, striving to make sure every detail is perfect, ensuring the food is prepared, the house is welcoming, and everyone is taken care of, regardless of how chaotic the day may become. They are the ones who tirelessly schedule doctor appointments, follow up on prescription refills, and manage the health needs of not only their children but often their spouses and elderly parents, too. These tasks, which seem simple to some, add up to a monumental amount of emotional labor over the years, leaving them feeling worn out and, at times, invisible. They are the quiet organizers of the family, always knowing when to send a thoughtful card to a friend, when to check in on an old acquaintance, and when to remind a loved one that they matter. They seem to always have something on their mind, a list of things to do, a mental calendar of when every birthday, every celebration, every responsibility is. And it's often done without asking for help. Many women don't even expect to be thanked for it. They simply do it because it's part of who they are. It's part of how they love. But after years of carrying this emotional weight, the cracks begin to show. These women, as they grow older, start to realize just how much they've given and how little they've received in return. The constant emotional work begins to feel like a burden, a relentless load that doesn't seem to get any lighter. The exhaustion creeps in slowly at first, and then, one day, it becomes undeniable. They begin to feel like they're living a life in which they are the only ones carrying the emotional responsibility, the only ones keeping the ship afloat, while their husbands remain blissfully unaware of how much their wives are struggling. And here's the painful truth. Many men don't even realize it's happening. They go about their lives, assuming that everything is fine because their wife has always taken care of it. They fail to see the mounting pressure on her shoulders because they're too comfortable in the routine they've come to expect. Men often don't see the toll that constant emotional labor has on their wives, how each little task, each thoughtful gesture, and each responsibility slowly chips away at the woman's energy, her well-being, and her happiness. There's a tragic disconnect in this. The woman, exhausted, feels like she is carrying the entire weight of the marriage. It feels as though she is walking through life with a heavy, invisible load that she's constantly lifting, but her partner is unaware. Her role as the emotional caretaker becomes so ingrained in her identity that it's hard to imagine life any other way. She starts to feel like her entire existence is defined by how well she can hold everything together. Her husband's needs, the family's needs, the children's needs, while her own needs go unmet, quietly pushed to the back burner. The sense of unfairness starts to build up. Over time, resentment begins to grow, rooted in the feeling of being taken for granted, of being unappreciated. The emotional neglect feels like an unspoken wound, one that doesn't show on the outside but eats away at her heart and soul. She longs for emotional reciprocity, for acknowledgement, for the simple recognition that her efforts matter. But instead, she feels invisible. And the hardest part of all is that it's not just the exhaustion that hurts. It's the realization that she has been silently giving and giving without anyone truly noticing the depth of her sacrifice. It's the feeling of carrying an entire emotional world while the person she loves and cares for has no idea just how heavy that weight has become. The imbalance is suffocating, and no matter how hard she tries to hold it all together, she begins to feel like she's falling apart. This isn't just about doing chores or managing tasks. It's about the deep emotional toll that comes with consistently putting everyone else's needs above her own. It's the loneliness of doing it all in silence, the quiet ache of longing for an emotional connection that seems out of reach. It's heartbreaking. She begins to wonder if her efforts even matter, if her emotional well-being will ever be prioritized, or if she will always be the one who gives, without ever receiving the support she needs in return. And, in that moment of self-awareness, she starts to question not only her relationship but her own identity, too. Is she just the emotional caretaker? Or is she someone with needs, desires, and dreams that deserve attention and care as well? This is the reality many women face. The crushing weight of invisible emotional labor, the quiet pain of carrying the relationship on their backs, and the desperate yearning for it to be seen, acknowledged, and shared. Number 2. A lack of meaningful communication. In the early stages of a relationship, every conversation is an exciting exploration into the heart and mind of the person you love. There is a natural curiosity, a burning desire to know everything about the other person. The questions come effortlessly. How was your day? What are you thinking about? What dreams keep you up at night? What's your biggest fear? What are you passionate about? Tell me everything. It's in these moments of sharing the little things, small anecdotes, inside jokes, personal hopes, that a deep bond is formed. Every word spoken feels like a piece of the puzzle, drawing the two people closer in a dance of emotional intimacy. Those early conversations are the foundation of the relationship. They nurture a sense of connection, vulnerability, and mutual care that makes both partners feel seen, heard, and understood. But as the years pass, something shifts, often imperceptibly at first. The conversations that once sparked joy and closeness start to lose their depth. They become predictable, routine, and sometimes even mechanical. Instead of passionate exchanges about dreams and emotions, the dialogue is reduced to surface-level comments like, "How was work today?" Or "Did you pay the bills?" These small talk questions might seem harmless, but over time, they serve as a hollow shell of what was once a meaningful connection. And the worst part? Sometimes, the words just stop altogether. Silence settles in where conversation used to flourish, and the emotional distance starts to creep in, unnoticed at first. For a woman, this lack of meaningful communication can feel like a slow emotional suffocation. Women crave emotional intimacy just as much as they crave companionship. It's not enough for her partner to just be physically present. She needs to feel emotionally seen and understood. Without that deep, emotional dialogue, she starts to feel invisible. She might wonder, "Why don't you ask me about my day anymore? Why don't you want to know what's on my mind, what I'm dreaming of, or how I'm feeling?" It's painful when you realize that the man who once hung on every word you said now seems indifferent, detached, or worse, uninterested in the thoughts and feelings that are shaping your life. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. She starts to feel unheard, as though her emotions and opinions no longer hold any weight. Over time, she may begin to feel unappreciated, as though the connection she once cherished is slipping through her fingers. It's like a subtle erosion of her sense of worth in the relationship. The silence feels cold, the lack of emotional engagement suffocating. In the worst cases, she may feel like she is nothing more than a background presence in her marriage. They are physically but emotionally distant. This kind of emotional disconnect is one of the most painful things a person can experience in a relationship. It chips away at the very core of the bond they once shared. What's worse, this silence is often misinterpreted. The lack of conversation is not always a sign of disinterest or dislike, but rather a sign that something important is missing. Communication is how we nurture our relationships. It's how we express our needs, our desires, and our deepest fears. Without it, the relationship becomes a hollow shell, where the connection is reduced to routine and obligations rather than love, respect, and mutual understanding. For her, the longing for those once vibrant conversations becomes overwhelming. She remembers the way they used to talk for hours, sharing their thoughts and dreams like there was no end to their curiosity about each other. She misses the days when his voice would light up with genuine interest in her world. The absence of these heartfelt exchanges leaves her heart aching, like a wound that refuses to heal. It's not just about the words, it's about the emotional investment, the willingness to connect on a deeper level. The silence, the lack of emotional intimacy, feels like the slow death of something once beautiful and cherished. In the end, this absence of meaningful communication doesn't just affect the woman, it affects the entire relationship. Both partners suffer, each silently grieving the loss of something irreplaceable. The distance between them grows as they both long for a connection they can't seem to find while never fully understanding what went wrong. It's a tragedy of unspoken words, unmet needs, and unacknowledged emotions that could have been avoided if only they had made an effort to keep the conversation alive, to keep their hearts open to each other's worlds. Number 3. The burden of housework never ends. The never-ending burden of housework, a topic that countless women in long-term marriages have felt deep in their bones, yet often feel too tired to voice. It's one of those silent, unspoken struggles that weigh on them like an invisible, ever-expanding load. This burden doesn't just end when the children leave home, when their career winds down, or when the days of active employment finally come to a close. It carries on, perpetuating itself, creeping into their golden years, seemingly unshakable, no matter what other aspects of life change. For many women, housework is not merely about cleaning. It's about the emotional labor that goes unnoticed, the constant management and organization that go unappreciated. It's the task of making sure the home feels warm and inviting, the task of creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable, nourished, and cared for. This responsibility becomes almost invisible to everyone else in the household, until something is out of place. And even then, it's often the woman who is expected to deal with it, even when she is weary beyond measure. In modern times, one would think that equality and progress in society might alleviate some of this pressure, but sadly, it seems to have only shifted in one direction. Studies consistently show that women still perform the majority of household chores, even long after retirement age. Many women find themselves shouldering this load into their senior years, as the demands of maintaining a home never quite seem to ease up. Even when the children have moved out, the careers have slowed, and the quiet of retirement sets in, the relentless nature of housework lingers. And that's the problem. It doesn't stop. It doesn't say, "You've done enough, you've earned a break." It keeps going. The dust piles up again. The dishes stack higher. The laundry basket overflows. The house, despite all her efforts, is never truly done. As the years pass, the sense of fairness fades, and the weight becomes more unbearable. Women who were once full of energy, determination, and optimism find themselves simply exhausted by the weight of endless responsibilities. And by the time they enter their senior years, there's a growing, overwhelming sense of burnout that colors every aspect of their day. Many of them begin to feel like they've become the invisible caretaker, the one who is always there, always cleaning, always organizing, and always putting everyone else's needs ahead of their own. And there's no end in sight. The frustration starts small, perhaps with dishes left in the sink overnight or clothes left strewn about after a busy day. At first, these minor acts of neglect may feel trivial, almost insignificant. But the accumulation of such moments, over months and years, has a profound impact on her emotional state. Over time, these small annoyances transform into something far deeper: resentment. The constant demands and expectations begin to weigh heavily, and what once may have been seen as just a minor irritation turns into an emotional avalanche. The woman feels overwhelmed, unappreciated, and sometimes even invisible. The chores, the endless tasks, the cooking, the cleaning, the organizing, none of it ever truly stops. It doesn't matter if she's feeling sick, tired, or emotionally drained. The work never stops. And with each passing day, she wonders, why do I have to keep doing everything? That question doesn't just reflect frustration. It reflects a sense of neglect, of exhaustion, of emotional depletion. She's been giving and giving for so long without ever receiving the recognition, the appreciation, or the help she deserves. This sense of imbalance is far from just about the chores. It's about emotional neglect. It's about feeling like her efforts go unnoticed or unvalued. As the years go on, she starts to feel as though her contributions are simply expected, taken for granted. The house doesn't stay clean on its own. The bills don't pay themselves. The errands don't run themselves. Yet, she's the one always stepping in, always filling the gaps. There's a deep loneliness that accompanies this burden, a profound isolation that no one seems to acknowledge. Even when her family is physically present, she's left to deal with the daily routine on her own while others carry on with their own lives, oblivious to the weight she's carrying. What's more painful is that, as the years pile on, her body begins to feel the strain. The constant bending, the lifting, the repetitive motions of sweeping, mopping, and scrubbing. Her body aches in ways she can no longer ignore. But the work doesn't stop. It doesn't pause for her physical limitations. Even when her knees are sore, her back aches, or she is simply too tired to lift another dish, the house still needs attention. And yet, her spouse or family members might not even notice. They've grown accustomed to her doing it all, and she's expected to continue as if she's somehow immune to the toll it takes. This cycle creates an emotional whirlwind. The resentment builds, layer by layer, until it becomes almost unbearable. Each time she picks up another item off the floor, each time she scrubs another dish, the question echoes louder in her mind. Why do I have to keep doing everything? She is constantly left to ask this question as if she is carrying an invisible load that no one else is willing to shoulder. And that is where the true pain lies. Not in the physical labor of housework, but in the emotional burden of feeling unseen, unappreciated, and overwhelmed. After years of doing it all, it's not just about cleaning the house anymore. It's about needing to be seen, to be acknowledged, to have someone share the load. It's about reaching a point where the question is no longer just rhetorical. It's a desperate cry for help, recognition, and balance. It's a cry that goes unheard, but one that many women continue to ask as they shoulder this exhausting burden alone. Number 4. She outgrows the relationship, but he doesn't. As women move through the different stages of life, particularly as they age, there is often an awakening within them, a strong desire to grow and evolve into the fullest versions of themselves. It's as if the layers of their previous experiences begin to peel away, and they find themselves craving new adventures, new challenges, and new ways to see and experience the world. This may mean traveling to places they've always dreamed of visiting, delving into new hobbies and passions, or pursuing higher education to continue learning about themselves and the world around them. There's a deep, almost spiritual urge to explore, to change, to become something more than they were yesterday. But what happens when, as she embarks on this journey of self-discovery, her partner refuses to walk alongside her to evolve in the same way? The sense of frustration that builds over time is undeniable. It can feel like a betrayal, not in the traditional sense of infidelity, but in the unspoken emotional distance that begins to grow. The man she once loved, the person she married, is no longer the partner who is eager to learn, change, or even engage with the new version of herself that she is becoming. Instead, he remains stuck, stubbornly rooted in old ways, not open to change, uninterested in growing or expanding his horizons. This stark contrast between the two can be emotionally suffocating for her. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Over time, it can feel as though she is slowly outgrowing the relationship itself. When you're growing emotionally and intellectually every day, and your partner isn't, when you're becoming more aware, more awakened, more in tune with your true self, and he's not, the emotional gap between you can feel like an insurmountable wall. The woman may start to notice the small but unmistakable ways in which they've drifted apart. Conversations that once sparked excitement or deep connection now feel flat, shallow, and uninspiring. What was once a shared vision of the future begins to fade, replaced by a sense of isolation. As she steps further into her growth, the love they once shared feels less like a partnership and more like a memory, something that no longer fits with who she's becoming. At first, she may try to adjust, thinking maybe the relationship can still work if she's patient and sacrifices some of her desires for the sake of their marriage. She might suppress the growing discontent, holding on to the hope that things will improve, that he'll change, or that the bond they once shared will magically reappear. But the truth is, when you're evolving into a more vibrant, self-aware version of yourself and your partner remains the same, stagnant and closed off, it starts to feel like a deeply lonely journey. The woman may start to question whether she can continue to love and sacrifice for someone who doesn't seem interested in supporting her personal growth or embracing the changes she's going through. It becomes harder and harder to ignore the emotional isolation that sets in as she realizes that they are no longer walking in sync, no longer pushing each other forward. The gap between them becomes so wide that it feels like they're living entirely separate lives. The joy she once found in sharing her experiences with him is replaced by a sense of emotional emptiness, as she feels like she's living in 2 worlds at once. One where she is growing, exploring, expanding, and another where he's stuck in a place she can't reach anymore. The frustration intensifies as she realizes she can't drag him with her on this journey. It's heartbreaking because she deeply loves him, and she always thought they'd grow old together, evolving as a team. But love, as much as it can be a powerful force, cannot force change when one person isn't willing to evolve. This emotional distance begins to take a toll on her sense of self. She starts to feel as though she's trapped between her love for him and her desires to grow, to be more, to experience life fully. As she grows more fulfilled by pursuing her passions and dreams, she begins to wonder, can a relationship survive when one person is growing while the other is standing still? The emotional gap between them widens no matter how hard she tries to bridge it. It's a painful realization. She is no longer the person she was when they first met, and he may never see the person she is becoming. The hardest part is that she may still love him, but the relationship, as it stands, is not enough to nurture her anymore. In these moments, she's faced with an incredibly difficult choice. Continue sacrificing her growth and happiness to stay in a relationship that feels increasingly like a cage, or face the heartbreaking reality that she may need to let go to live the life she's meant to live. The emotional toll of being in a relationship where one partner refuses to grow can be incredibly draining. It's a slow and painful process, watching someone you love stay stagnant while you're constantly evolving, changing, and expanding. Eventually, you realize that you cannot force someone else to grow with you. They must want it for themselves. And that can be one of the most emotionally painful experiences a woman can go through. The realization that she must evolve, with or without him, and that this marriage may no longer be a part of her journey. Number 5. A loss of physical and emotional intimacy. Intimacy, in its truest form, is not just about physical closeness. It's about that deep, unspoken connection that makes 2 people feel completely understood and cherished. It's the warmth of a gentle touch, the spark in a lover's eyes that makes you feel desired, and the feeling of being truly seen for who you are, flaws and all. But over time, something changes. For many couples, the connection that once felt unbreakable begins to fray at the edges. The affection that once flowed so easily starts to feel like a distant memory, and the closeness that defined the relationship slowly diminishes. For a woman, this loss can feel like a cruel, silent thief stealing away the very heart of her relationship. When a woman no longer feels desire, when she no longer feels like the object of her partner's affection, it's like a subtle but devastating blow to her self-worth. She can't help but feel as though she's been pushed to the sidelines, no longer seen in the same light that once made her feel beautiful, cherished, and adored. It's as though the very essence of love itself is slipping through her fingers, leaving her with a sense of emptiness, longing, and confusion. She begins to wonder, has her partner's love for her faded, or worse, is it gone altogether? This isn't just about the physical absence of affection. It's the emotional void that creeps in quietly, slowly taking root in the relationship. The emotional detachment that follows is often gradual, but it's deeply painful. It's as if the woman begins to withdraw into herself, emotionally distancing herself from the man who once made her feel like the center of his world. She stops reaching out sand tops, longing for the closeness they once shared because she no longer feels it from him. She can no longer pretend that everything is okay when, deep down, she feels unseen, unimportant, and emotionally alone in a relationship that used to be full of warmth and connection. The detachment isn't just physical, it's mental and emotional, too. As she starts to guard her heart, she finds herself closing off from the very person she once shared her deepest fears, desires, and dreams with. And with each passing day, the gap between them widens. What makes this loss even more heartbreaking is the silence that accompanies it, the unspoken words, the unmet glances, the feelings left unaddressed. The emotional intimacy that once served as the glue holding the relationship together is no longer there. This absence of affection, both physical and emotional, creates a quiet tension in the air, one that neither partner seems to know how to fix. For the woman, the void becomes unbearable. She wants to reach out, to ask for the love and connection she so desperately craves, but she fears rejection. She wonders if she's asking for too much, or if perhaps she's just not the woman she once was in her partner's eyes. And so, she silently suffers, feeling the weight of her loneliness as her emotional distance from her partner deepens. This isn't just a loss of intimacy, it's a loss of a part of herself. When a woman no longer feels desired by the person she loves, she begins to question her worth and or value in the relationship. She wonders if there's something wrong with her if she's not enough. The emotional scars can run deep, and over time, they can erode the very foundation of the relationship, leaving both partners trapped in a cycle of longing, confusion, and heartache. What was once a deep, passionate bond now feels like an echo of what it used to be. It's a painful realization that the connection they shared may never return, and the intimacy they once had may be lost forever. The sadness is overwhelming, not just for the woman but for both partners, as they grapple with the reality that something that once felt so unshakable has now been reduced to a distant memory. Ultimately, when intimacy fades, both physical and emotional, it's not just the loss of affection that stings. It's the painful truth that, in many ways, they are no longer the people they once were to each other. And this truth can be more devastating than anything. Number 6. Retirement changes everything, but not always for the better. Retirement is often painted as the golden stage of life, a time when you finally get to slow down, enjoy the freedom that comes with no more work obligations, travel to the places you've always dreamed of, and simply revel in each other's company. It's supposed to be a time of peace, joy, and rejuvenation after decades of hard work. But for many couples, it turns out to be a period of unexpected tension and frustration. And honestly, it's heartbreaking to witness. Why? Because suddenly, after years of busy schedules and separate routines, the couple is now forced to spend every waking moment together. And for many men, the transition isn't easy. They've spent their lives working hard, and then, just like that, they go from being fully immersed in their careers to having too much time on their hands and no clear plan on how to fill it. That's where the trouble starts. In too many cases, the husband, not knowing how to fill the void of retirement, turns to his wife as if she were his entertainment committee. He expects her to be at his side, to entertain him, to take care of him, and most of all, to fill every moment of the day with her presence. Imagine the weight of that expectation, especially for a woman who has spent her entire life juggling responsibilities, taking care of the children, managing the home, and perhaps even having her career. This new reality can feel like a heavy burden. Instead of retirement offering a sense of freedom and relaxation, it feels suffocating, as though the very thing she looked forward to has been stolen from her. Without her hobbies, her circle of friends, or personal interests to retreat to, she may start to feel trapped, as though her identity is now solely defined by her role as caretaker and companion. She never signed up for this. The resentment that begins to bubble up can be slow, quiet, and insidious, but over time, it can erode the bond they once shared. It's a heartbreaking thing to watch unfold as the love she once felt starts to fray at the edges, worn down by the crushing weight of unmet needs and lost autonomy. I've seen it happen in so many relationships, and it's truly painful. The emotional toll on both partners can be devastating if they don't navigate this transition carefully. It's easy to think of retirement as just a time of fun and freedom, but for many, it's a period of rediscovery. Learning how to live together in a new way and, most importantly, how to give each other the space to thrive as individuals. Without that balance, retirement can be less of a golden chapter and more of a quiet unraveling. Number 7. She no longer feels heard or appreciated. There are few things in life more soul-crushing than the feeling of being unheard, especially within the confines of a marriage. After all, marriage is supposed to be about partnership, communication, and understanding. But for many women, there comes a time when it feels like their words echo in a void, met with silence or indifference. It's not the arguments, the disagreements, or even the hardships that sting the most. It's the quiet devastation of being invisible. For years, she may have been the emotional backbone of the family, the one everyone turned to for support, guidance, and love. She's carried burdens, nurtured relationships, and sacrificed so much of herself for the people she holds dear. But over time, something shifts. She begins to speak up, to share her thoughts and emotions, to try and connect with her partner. Yet, more often than not, her words fall flat, dismissed without a second thought, or worse, completely ignored. All a wife wants, deep down, is to be heard. To know that her feelings, her worries, and her dreams still matter to the person she has shared her life with. It's not about extravagant gestures or constant affirmations. It's about the simple, profound act of being truly listened to have her voice recognized, and her heart understood. When that stops happening, something painful begins to grow inside her. She withdraws emotionally, step by step, like a flower that no longer receives the sunlight it once thrived under. And once that emotional distance starts to creep in, it becomes incredibly difficult to bridge the gap again. The longer a woman feels ignored, the more she internalizes the pain of rejection. She stops reaching out and stops trying to make her partner see her as more than just a background figure in their life. When the emotional intimacy is severed, resentment takes root, quiet but powerful. It festers in the silence, in the unspoken words that never find their way to the surface. Love, once vibrant and full of life, withers into a cold, silent resentment that threatens to erode everything that once held them together. It's heartbreaking, really, because, in the silence, she's not just losing her voice, she's losing herself. Number 8. She realizes life is short, and she wants more. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. As the years pass, life slowly starts to reveal itself in a way that is impossible to ignore. The early carefree days of youth begin to slip away, and with them comes an undeniable awareness. Life is fragile, fleeting, and shockingly short. We lose people, our friends, our loved ones, watching them disappear from our lives one by one. We attend more funerals than we ever imagined we would, each one serving as a painful reminder that time, once lost, can never be regained. It is in this moment when we are forced to confront our mortality that we begin to grasp the preciousness of each moment. And it is at this crossroads of awareness that many women experience an overwhelming shift in perspective. Suddenly, the question, "Am I truly happy?" echoes in their minds like a bell that cannot be ignored. At some point, as the years continue to add weight to our hearts, the subtle realizations begin to unfold. We find ourselves asking the hard, raw questions. Am I truly loved? Am I being seen for who I am? Is this the life I want to live for the rest of my years? It's a gut-wrenching reckoning, one that stirs the deepest parts of the soul. And if the answers to those questions bring only dissatisfaction, even a sense of emptiness, something inside her begins to shift. It's not an outburst of anger or resentment. It's a quiet withdrawal, a retreat that comes from the deep need for self-preservation. She begins to pull away, not because she no longer cares, but because she realizes that she has spent so much of her life giving and sacrificing, and now she must reclaim some of that energy for herself. Over time, many women reach a moment of awakening, a time when they no longer want to fight for attention, plead for affection, or beg for recognition. The emotional toll of constant effort without reciprocation wears them down, and they finally understand that their worth is far more than simply existing in someone else's world. So they stop. They stop trying to force connection, stop trying to fix something that feels broken. It is not a decision made lightly, but one that comes from the realization that they deserve more than being an afterthought, more than living in the shadows of someone else's life. They deserve a vibrant life, one that nurtures their soul and sees them as they truly are. In the later stages of life, relationships are not about grand gestures or dramatic expressions of love. Instead, they are about the subtle, everyday acts of presence, understanding, and respect. It is in these moments that a woman begins to feel truly seen and valued. When that presence fades, when the understanding disappears, and when respect is no longer present, love begins to fade. It doesn't vanish in an instant. No, it fades in the quiet, unnoticed moments. The moments where a woman's words go unheard, where her emotional needs are ignored, where she carries the weight of life's burdens alone, with no support to lean on. Over time, these silent absences chip away at the heart, and the connection that once existed feels like it's slipping through her fingers. But it doesn't have to be this way. Love, after all, is a choice. It's something that can be cultivated, nurtured, and reignited, even after years of neglect. If you're a husband watching this, take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you truly listened to your wife? When was the last time you truly saw her and appreciated her? Not just as a partner, but as a unique, incredible person in her own right. And if you're a wife feeling the distance, feeling the chasm grow between you and your spouse, ask yourself, is there still room in your heart for rebuilding that bond? Is there space for healing, for reigniting what was once bright? Because, despite the wounds, there's always hope. The choice to rebuild, to reignite love, is a powerful one. One that can breathe life back into even the most weary relationship. As we've journeyed through these reflections together, I hope you found some truths that resonate with your own life. The lessons we've explored about love, connection, self-preservation, and understanding are not just for marriages but for all the relationships in our lives. It's never too late to make a change, to ask the tough questions, and to take steps toward a life that truly nourishes us. So, what have you learned today? I'd love to hear from you. Please share in the comments below one thing that has resonated with you and that you'll take to heart and put into practice in your own life. If you found this video meaningful, please leave a comment, like, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Thank you so much for being here. Let's continue this journey of growth and self-awareness together.